Ah, you've received my summons, minions. Good, good. In today's episode, we finally arrive within the parameters of the module I-2, Tomb of the Lizard King. The inciting incident printed in the module plays out. So, without further ado, let's see how the players interact with it. As is our fashion, the action is recreated using the Order of the Stick Monster for Every Season cutout minis. The players. Grant as Rotkill, Neutral Good Dwarven Fighter, Level 8. Claude as Dub, Neutral Good Dwarven Thief, Level 8. Les as Bovel, Neutral Good Human Magic User, Level 7. Ron as Valletta, Chaotic Good Human Cleric of Tymora, Level 7. Dave as Daryl, Lawful Good Human Paladin of Lathander, Level 6. Sean as Octavius, Chaotic Good Human Ranger, Level 6. And one henchman, Larian, Chaotic Good Human Cleric of Tymora, Level 4. The action picks up as the heroes arrive in the County of Eor. Two orders of business are conducted right off. The first is the requisite giggling and jokes about the Lord's coat of arms possibly being a certain depressed donkey. And the second is a minor retcon, as the players had wanted to purchase some supplies before they left the outpost a fortnight ago. As some players had to depart swiftly post-session the last time, this is permitted. Basic supplies are acquired, rations, torches, some commonly found spell components, things like that, nothing egregious. The lands of Eor are fairly expansive and consist of a landscape dotted with farming communities and villages. The road through a hilly area heads right to the city, though they have a couple of days' journey to get there. Up ahead, they see a host of armed men approaching them. A standard bearer carries a banner portraying the symbol of a raised gauntlet, sharing the banner with the crest of a noble house. They are led by a man on horseback. Daryl rides forward to treat with them. The leader introduces himself as Captain Troom. He is the leader of the Count's forces. He inquires as to their business in these lands. When Daryl engages with the patrol captain, Valletta examines the banner, recognizing the raised gauntlet as a symbol of Torm, the patron saint of paladins, though he doesn't recognize the house emblem. The meeting is friendly and info is gleaned about the region. Daryl openly tells Troom about their quest and association with the faith of Tymora. Troom informs them that they worship Torm in this land, and the capricious teachings of Tymora aren't welcome, though followers of Lathander certainly are. He nods to Daryl's own symbol. Daryl also openly speaks of their quest for the Caelestis Array, the Holy Avenger. Afterwards, the group readies to move on. Troom splits the men into two columns to allow the team to stay on the road, and they slowly march past as the team huddles to talk before they leave. Dub suggests to Daryl that they keep their intent and goal a secret, as well as concealing the Tymorites' faith while they are in Eor. A negative reaction roll for Larian has him call out Dub's dishonesty, telling him that he refuses to hide his faith. He also further accuses him of attempting to coax the paladin into deceitful behavior. Dub attempts to justify his position when the DM has the ranger roll surprise. A 1 is rolled. Dub is quick enough to shake off surprise as Troom suddenly orders his men to kill them all and take their valuables to someone called Lord Mordrin. One of the men who stayed back is a mage. He casts a stinking cloud on the team, getting half the group in the cloud. Daryl, Dub, Octavius, Larian, plus the animals. Saves are rolled, and only Dub fails, falling over helplessly and retching in the overwhelming magic. The men move to attack vulnerable targets, but even with bonuses to strike, these ruffians are unable to score telling blows. Meanwhile, outside of the stinking cloud, Rotkill shows everyone exactly why 8th level fighters are called superheroes, as he cuts through the mooks with ease, killing 7 of them out of 8 attacks. The cart lurches forward as the animals attempt to get out of the cloud. Bovel's magic resistance from the robe of the Archmagi protects him as the cart pulls him into the cloud, and he lifts off with his boots of levitation rising above the stinking mass, ready to cast his own magic. Octavius and Larian pull themselves out of the cloud amid blows, while Daryl maintains control of his steed and exits the cloud. All are still choking and cannot act for another round, but Rotkill is in full carnage mode, annihilating the mooks with his 8 attacks per round. The enemy mage runs the other way while Captain Troom gallops off. Bovel casts a lightning bolt at the distant mage. Given the mage's movement rate and Bovel's range based on his level, a moment of calculation is done as the mage might be out of range. But it turns out that he didn't quite make it. and thus the lightning bolt zaps him just as he's about to exit the range of the spell, killing him instantly. Bovel then turns his attention to the 6 men attacking Octavius and peppers them with magic missiles, killing 3. Octavius recovers and counterattacks, taking out 2, while on the other side of the wagon, Rotkill has killed off all of the rest. Octavius attempts to subdue the final enemy, though misses. It is immaterial, however, as morale breaks and he surrenders, pleading not to be killed. The man's demeanor is strange, however, and while he's clearly afraid of the group, he's also afraid to say too much about his boss. He does state that his leader wasn't Captain Troom, but a lieutenant to someone called Mordrin. During all of this, both Bovel and Octavius get a strange sensation that they're being watched. Bovel's arcane training tells him that it isn't just someone watching them, rather, they are being scryed. They bind up the prisoner and continue to the capital of Vendare. 2 days later, they arrive at the gates of Vendare and entreat entrance. Darrell deals with the gate guards, who react favorably to his being a paladin of Lathander. They are told that they may enter when they disarm and disarmor. Darrell does so right away, along with Dub and Bovel, while the others opt to remain outside of the gates and remain armed. They are escorted with the prisoner to the palace, where they are checked for hidden weapons and made to wait in an antechamber. An older man in heavy robes arrives, sizes them up, then departs. They are shortly thereafter brought to the Count, who lounges in his chair in the requisite pose like a Jarl from Skyrim, with the older robed man standing beside him. The Count introduces himself as Count Brunis, the 5th Count of Eor. He inquires about Darrell's presence and their encounter on the road. After a very brief conversation, wherein the Count offers his apologies to the fact that Darrell and his company were attacked on his land, the Count of Eor sends his guards away, as well as the robed advisor, that he might talk to these people alone. He informs them that their trustworthiness has been confirmed. They continue to talk, and Brunis speaks of bandits plaguing caravans and traders coming into his lands. Darrell shows him the symbol of the Coiled Cabal that they acquired from the Yuan-Ti they defeated weeks prior, and Brunis recognizes it immediately as he's also had run-ins with the Yuan-Ti. He believes that the cult is up to something in the neighboring land of Najara. After mention of Captain Troom, the Count tells the team that Troom's patrol went missing weeks ago. They are worried for the captain and his men. The conversation turns to the tomb of Sakatha, at which point Brunis speaks of his great-great-grandfather, the 1st Count of Eor, who led forces against Sakatha's armies. Sakatha was one of the lizardman race, though possessed great intelligence and was able to master the arcane arts. This is highly unusual, as lizardmen don't have the capacity for it, at all. They are among the many races simply incapable of harnessing arcane magic. After Sakatha was killed and his army routed, fanatical servants took his body to the stronghold in the Marsh of Chalimber, and sunk it so that his riches and secrets couldn't be plundered. A loyal friend and ally to the 1st Count, a paladin of Lathander, took some men and followed, but none returned. The paladin bore the Calestis Irae, the Holy Avenger that Darrell now seeks. Meanwhile, outside, Valletta and the wall guard have taken to taunting one another. But eventually the robed advisor arrives on the wall. He studies the group for a bit, before calling down and inviting them in. When asked if they'd have to disarm and disarmor, they are told no, they have been found worthy of trust. Valletta gives the wall guard a round of the old raspberries as the team is led in. They are reunited with the others and meet Count Brunis. Conversation turns to the swamp, where they ask if any creatures of the swamp might be posing problems. Dub asks about dragons, but Brunis says none have been sighted. Brunis warns of the usual dangers of such a region: trolls, lizardmen, various animals. He does say that a Catoplobus is the most dangerous creature he knows of that has been reported. Brunis, recognizing this team's inherent honor and goodness, agrees to help them as best he can, while they too offer their talents to him, since it's clear he's a noble and honorable ruler. It's a real goody-good mutual admiration society, isn't it? When asked if Brunis would be able to guide them to merchants who have been attacked, he states that a dinner is already planned where he is hosting many of these men. The group will be able to speak with them there. They are provided rooms as well as fineries for dinner. Since they have the time, the group heads into the city to find a money changer and jeweler in order to convert their Cormyrian coin into more portable gems, as well as some local coinage. Valletta makes friends with a bartender at a tavern, inquiring about guides for the marsh. He learns that the village of Wakehome is the most likely place to find someone, as that it's the only settlement that's right adjacent to the marsh, though he does agree to ask his regular patrons on Valletta's behalf. Wakehome is a several-day trip from Vendare. Arriving at dinner, the team finds the hall filled with some 24 merchants, mingling and talking shop. There are some armed guards with a few of the merchants. In each corner of the room are 4 robed priests chanting a prayer to Torm. Valletta watches the rituals and confirms that they are indeed reciting a Tormish prayer. He also notes that every so often a new priest enters the hall to relieve one of the others, taking their place in the prayer. The Count and his advisor, whose name they now know is Jorlin, are engaging their guests and addressing concerns about banditry. The group splits up. Valletta and Larian, Daryl and Dub, Bavel, and Octavius each engage with merchants to glean information. Rotkill keeps close to Valletta. Valletta approaches a merchant with an armed guard, but the reaction roll is negative. The merchant spits at him in a foreign language. His guard translates that he wants nothing to do with the lowly Valletta, and they move away. Bavel has more luck, as the merchant in question is absolutely in love with Bavel's amazingly beautiful robe. He introduces himself as Muldoon and offers to buy it, but Bavel politely declines. Muldoon tells Bavel that he's from Baldur's Gate, and he entreats Bavel to seek him out if he changes his mind. He offers a king's ransom for it. He does learn that when Muldoon's caravan was attacked, an old man hobbled out in front to block them, and suddenly they found themselves flanked. The mercenaries and guards were captured, the attackers using man-catchers and nets. Daryl engages with 3 snooty merchants who immediately soften at his divine grace and become quite taken with him. They converse and ask about Dub, who is lurking behind Daryl. They dismiss him as a mere lowly servant, but hang off of Daryl's every word. Daryl shares knowledge of his own mission with them, and they offer to help finance his quest with a 5% recovery fee if he can recover their goods during his adventures. Octavius speaks with a merchant, who is at first reticent, but upon mentioning that he's been hired by the Count to look into the bandits, another reaction roll is positive, and the man opens up, indicating that his caravan was attacked by the Great Bridge near the marsh. The dinner gong sounds, and people take their seats. Daryl is invited to dine with the Count and Jorlin, the robed advisor. The others take various strategic seats around the room. Once seated, Bavel again senses that they are being watched, specifically Scryed, as his training allows him to determine this. He moves up to tell the Count and Daryl, who are seated together. When Octavius notices that one of the priests is no longer reciting a prayer to Torm, rather one of vengeance and death, he recognizes this as a spell being cast. Surprise is rolled to see if he can act, and he rolls a 2, but being a ranger is not caught off guard. He declares a charge to tackle the priest in the corner. Initiative is rolled, but the casting priest wins. A column of fire rains down on the head table, killing several merchants and catching Brunis, Jorlin, Daryl, and Bavel in the blast. The DM rolls 6d8, scoring 28 damage. Daryl fails his saving throw and takes 28 damage, leaving him in a bad way, as do Count Brunis and Jorlin. Bavel's magic resistance fails, but he succeeds in his saving throw and shields himself from some damage. Octavius charges in to tackle the robed interloper, but is shaken off and pushed back. The interloper departs out the door, with Octavius in hot pursuit. Valletta rushes forth to follow Octavius, as does Bavel. Daryl demands a sword and shield from the very shocked nearby guard. Octavius witnesses the interloper sprinkling dust over himself, vanishing from sight as he moves into a seeming dead end, a temple to Torm. Bavel arrives, then casts a web spell covering the entire area, but catches nothing. Octavius and Dub check the other door on the opposite end of the corridor, through which they find a council room with a conference table in the center. Bavel and Valletta are plunged into silence and immediately ascertain that a silence spell has been cast on them. He moves down the hall and into the conference room where Octavius and Dub are searching for hidden exits. Shortly afterwards, the silence lifts, which means that whoever is using it is on the move, and using it to cover their trail. The aura of silence quiets part of the panicked diners in the main hall, and Valletta realizes that the assailant is sneaking back through the main hall. He stands at the door and casts Dispel Magic to blanket the area. There are 2 effects in play, the silence and invisibility, so Valletta rolls 2 percentage rolls for the Dispel. Both fail. He calls to the others to get to the main hall. Everyone rushes forward, through the main hall and into the entry arch. They once again enter a zone of silence, but it doesn't seem to be moving anymore. Octavius rushes forward to block the main exit, while Rotkill stands vigilant, looking for any sign of movement. Valletta grabs some kindling from the fireplace in the main hall and casts sticks to snakes, hoping to guide the snakes to seek out the invisible interloper. Bavel has an idea to get some flour and throw around to reveal anything invisible, so he rushes down the corridor and into the other palace area, where he finds his way to the kitchen. The kitchen lady is shocked at the intrusion and demands that he leave. With no time to waste, Bavel casts a charm spell on her to gain her cooperation. Instantly helpful, she mentions that there's been so much excitement. First one of the priests running through here, and now this. Realizing that this was the assailant's escape route, Bavel heads through the servant's delivery door and onto the outer grounds, but the assailant is long gone. The group reconvenes in the hall to report to a very angry and injured Count Brunis. The session concludes there. Here at last, minions. The stage is set, and the scenario is off to the races. Let's talk about the hits and misses of this opening salvo, shall we? First off, the opening attack by bandits disguised as the Count's men was entirely a DM concoction. As this is an ongoing campaign, you've seen how things tend to be arrived at in stages, with even the last 3 sessions being entirely encompassed by their journey. It would certainly have been easy enough to just say that the players arrive in Eor and have received an audience with the Count, as per the module instructions, but such things tend to be less engaging and immersive for the players. Show don't tell, minions. Certainly there will be exposition dumps in any game, but why simply tell the players that there's been a rise in banditry when you can have them jumped by said bandits? So a trick encounter was created and off they went. Of course, it wasn't just some random bandits. This encounter was tied into the goings-on, but those connections will be revealed at a later date as the mystery unfolds. In any case, I feel this is always better than just reading some boxed text to players. The rest of the inciting incident hewed close to what was outlined. The party is meant to meet Count Brunis. His advisor uses various abilities to detect the player's intent, check their alignments, etc., etc. This group radiates a disgusting amount of goodly-goody goodness, so any priest worth their salt will suss that out very fast, and trust will quickly be formed. What follows once the players agree to aid the Count is a meeting with the merchants, where a series of info tidbits and clues can be gleaned through roleplay opportunity, followed by the Flame Strike assassination attempt. The DM here made it a dinner rather than just a meeting of merchants looking to complain, but that's a minor thing. A couple of things here. First, the written instructions include guidance that I always consider poor. The setup for how players are supposed to spot the assailant casting the spell. The book recommends that the DM start counting up to 5 out of the blue to tip them off. Talk about an immersion breaker. This was obviously ignored in favor of a more traditional surprise check based on proximity, as well as player vigilance. Now, the players had pretty much accepted that the priests in the corners offering a prayer to Torm was normal here, as they should, so no one was paying them any mind when they switched out. But had paranoid players stated they were keeping an eye on each priest, which I suspect they might do in the future if such a situation ever comes up again, it would be reasonable to say that they just spot the fraud right away. Secondly, and this is something else I despise, the module sets up this elaborate assassination attempt, with a flame strike and all, and then goes on to tell the DM that Count Brunis and Jorlin must automatically make their saves and survive, pretty much making this all performative. Further, Count Brunis isn't a 0-level schlub of a leader, he's a 15th level warrior with 72 hit points, further rendering the guidance that he not be killed absolutely moot, as even a failed save on a full blast flame strike can't kill him. Jorlin is likewise unlikely to be killed, given the bell curve of the dice on a 6-die-8, but it's at least possible. Still, this is the stuff the DM here always ignores. What happens, happens. The detection of the scrying is also something that's laid out, with a heavy implication that the author of the module wants the players to detect that they are being watched. Given this group's high normal chances of detecting such things, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that they would, so that played out as expected. But as always, I have to say that I don't enjoy meaningless performative text. The game is at its best when anything goes. And finally, the expectation here is that the assailant escapes, though it does offer provisions for instances where the players manage to apprehend him, so that's something. But the author clearly expects and wants him to escape for later confrontation. On today's episode of How to Beat Yourself Up as a DM, we look into the DM's handling of the assassination, and the ever-present risk all DMs face of unnecessary overcomplication. Feeling the need to think he's clever, a dangerous pastime, minions, I don't recommend it. The DM here tried to justify the logic of the sequence of events leading up to the assassination attempt. Since the assailant is disguised as a priest of Torm, he must have gotten his robes from the adjacent chapel on the map, and therefore his presence at that particular door made sense. But now he's hemmed in, and needs an exit strategy since there's no escape from the chapel. So, a precast object with a silence spell is cast right before the attack and tucked away in a corner. The bit with the dust of disappearance is indeed part of the module and the assailant's loadout. So, when he flees through the door, making it look like he's going to the chapel, where he'd be cornered, he can slip away. Sounds great, right? Sure, but is it really necessary? Positioning him at the south doors near the main exit is really the way to go here. Bad DM, bad DM. Keep it simple, stupid. Still, it did at least give the players some high-stakes action while resorting to meaningless combat, so not a total write-off. Though the DM also forgot that Bovel has an automatic 5% chance of detecting invisible creatures by virtue of his level in intelligence. Oops. Regardless of any hiccups, the stage is now properly set. They are allied with Count Brunis, the Count of Eor. The danger and mystery behind the bandit raids is front and center. As well, the looming search for the tomb of Sakatha to recover the Kylestis array is on their minds. We'll get a few exciting sessions out of this one, I think, and it's not going to get any easier. Stay tuned for my summons, minions, as we continue I-2, the Tomb of the Lizard King. Ta for now.